I'm Lex, your favorite internet potato. And as your resident gamer, I couldn't not notice the discourse that's been going on for the past few weeks. Over the course of the past few weeks, the internet banded together against none other than Minecraft, and with that, Microsoft. All this because Minecraft fans were unhappy with the 2023 mob vote. So what happened here? What even is a mob vote? And why were avid Minecraft supporters so mad? Just in case you've been living under a rock for the past 12 years, and somehow managed to avoid Minecraft as a whole in the age of the internet, let me help you out. Minecraft is a 3D sandbox game, where you play a square dude that, well, mines and crafts. Originally, it was made as a relatively simple game compared to what it is now. In 2011, by a single guy that went by the name Notch. He founded his company Mojang in 2009, under which he started developing the game Minecraft. Then, after the release of the game, and he pretty soon started earning enough to quit his job and hire people to help work on the game full-time, he did just that. He quit his job and he hired a team to help develop his game full-time. Until 2014, when he sold Mojang to Microsoft. You probably have heard of them before. For a humble $2.5 billion. Billion. Anyway, in 2017, Mojang held the first ever mob vote. This during a live stream where they announced 4 mobs that could be added to the game. For reference, mobs are basically creatures or NPCs that are a part of the game, and each mob came with their own backstory and utilities, as well as a concept design. And fans could vote on Twitter for which mob they wanted to be added to the game, with the promise that the other 3 mobs would never be added to the game. Really, this started as an attempt to include the fanbase in the development of the game, and to make people feel like they were part of the process of making their favorite game. And this is confirmed if only by the announcement that came with this mob vote that they would have more community events like this in the future. And it was a part of a push to integrate the community more and more into the game as a whole. But even after this first vote, many fans were unhappy as they got a taste of 4, frankly, really cool ideas and were left with the implementation of only 1. And the promise that they wouldn't see the others ever again. This already left a bit of a bad taste. Now originally, I wanted to go through all the mods that had been lost to the vote since the vote started. Because originally, the idea was that the losing mobs would never actually be added to the game, and they would be scrapped forever. But instead, I found a pretty interesting pattern, where apparently the devs or someone at Mojang or Microsoft might have had a bias for some of the mobs, and they ended up being added to the game despite being voted off, despite the promises they made and no one asked for. Starting with Blaze, who lost the vote in the first vote in 2017. Blaze ended up being added to the game anyway in a spin-off of the game called Minecraft Dungeons. Then, in the 2020 vote, the runner-up Ice Logger was also added to Minecraft Dungeons. In 2021, neither of the losing mobs ended up being added to the game. And in 2022, the same thing happened and neither of the losing mobs ended up being added to the game as of yet. And obviously, the 2023 vote only just finished a few days ago, where the Armadillo won the vote. Now, what this seemingly tells me, excluding the 2023 vote because we're not entirely sure what the consequences are yet, and the winning mob hasn't been added to the game yet, and no updates after that have happened yet. But this does show that excluding the 2023 vote, only half of the votes done actually did what Mojang promised that they would do. So only half of the votes actually mattered. And it seems like Mojang will add whatever mobs they want to the game anyway. While you could see it as a good thing that not all the mobs were lost, it also just means that the vote doesn't actually mean as much as they would make us believe. They don't hold up to their promise that we would never see the other mobs again, making it seem like it doesn't matter what we vote for anyway, and that the Minecraft devs or execs will end up adding whatever they want to the game, making the attempt to include the community really only for show. And when I was looking into this, I found more weird things where some of the mobs that have still never been used, for example, Moobloom from the 2020 vote, actually got merch releases, making it seem like they might have been ready for Moobloom to win the vote and be added to the game and had already prepared merch that they still released and made money off of, even though it wasn't the one that got added to the game. And you can see that this Moobloom plushie that was released is now being resold for insane prices. If they had merch ready, they probably had the whole mob ready itself and could have just added it to the game anyway. And for some reason, Moobloom is the only mob from that year's vote that still isn't in the game, despite being a huge fan favorite. And Moobloom is such a great example of a fan favorite. There are so many products and art pieces made in honor of Moobloom and people that want to see Moobloom added to the game so badly. And this all, even though Moobloom never made the cut. I feel like this makes it so much weirder that they never actually added it to the game, even though they've shown that they'll add whatever mob they want to the game anyway, and the community vote doesn't actually change much. However, thanks to Minecraft's incredibly devoted fans, and with this, a very active modding community, making it so that most mobs that lost the vote actually ended up being available in the game through fan-made mods. Although, seeing that more and more fans would make mods to add these lost mobs to the game, the critique on Mojang kept increasing, because if fans could do it, then why couldn't Mojang? And a viral campaign started, complete with petitions and propaganda. Players want this to be the lost mob vote, and a lot of them want Mojang to add all the lost mobs to the game. Not just because people like the look of it or find them cute, but every mob comes with specific, often highly requested utilities for the game. And while sometimes, even though the mob never made it to the game, the utility did in some form, lots of them still never made it to the game. And never adding those to the game would be doing the players a disservice. At least that's what they feel. Especially after dangling what they could have had in front of them right before ripping it away. Then there's also the argument of the vote being inherently unfair, where usually Mojang gives 3 options for the mob vote. Only one will be added to the game. But to give this year's vote as an example, the armadillo won the vote with 42.3%. But this does mean that 57.7% of people that voted still don't get what they want. The majority didn't get what they wanted, leaving the majority of players unhappy with the results of the vote. And this has been the case for years now. Especially this combined with the fact that the promises of Mojang don't seem to hold up, and sometimes they add non-winning ideas anyway, just feels like the vote doesn't mean anything. Most people won't get what they want, Mojang doesn't fully listen to the vote anyway, and Mojang might as well add all 3 to begin with. If half of the time they end up adding 2 out of 3, they can add all 3. So what is the problem here? Apparently, all the mobs included in the mob votes were already on the chopping block. By giving them a vote, this was Mojang's idea of giving them a last chance to still make it to the game. This makes Mojang's promise of never seeing the mobs that lost the vote again seem pretty logical. If they wanted to scrap all 3 of them and ended up giving one of them a second chance at life, then it makes sense that we'd never see the other 2 again, because they were going to be scrapped anyway. But showing the fans what they're going to be missing out on is never a good idea. And showing the fans features that will never be added to the game can most definitely be a bigger negative than a positive. And while lots of players are calling Microsoft, Mojang, and the devs lazy, I'd wager that at least the devs themselves don't actually have much control here. It's more of a higher up decision to do these votes in the first place, and someone has to tell the devs what makes the cut and what doesn't. Microsoft is a huge company, and Mojang is not an indie studio anymore. It's all part of marketing and some bigger plan that some exec has drawn up that devs don't usually get to be a part of. But seeing how much capital would be available, we definitely shouldn't have to make the choice to throw away 1 or 2 concepts every year. We shouldn't have to make the choice to save one of 3 concepts that will be thrown away every year. I can understand the original idea of wanting to include the community and have their input on what will be added to the game next time. But doing it this way is just not working in Mojang's favor. And people arguing that Mojang definitely has the resources to add all 3 mobs into the game is bolstered by the fact that the Opera GX social media team has even demonstrated the ease of which they could add the mobs to the game. Hi, hello. Sorry to stop it, but while finishing up the video, I looked through the live stream again for the first Minecraft live event, Minecon live, whatever. And while they announced the first mob vote, and before they even properly start the first mob vote, they're already trying to explain why this actually doesn't suck. Trust me. I see that you want us to add everything, but it's really too hard for us. Trust me. It's too hard. Just watch the clip. Okay, thank you.
First, though, I wanted to address something. We've heard from some people, why not all 4? Well, I could talk about how much work goes into each mob before it can be added into the game and coded into Minecraft, and I could mention how much planning needs to go into how each mob affects everything else in the game, and that balance shouldn't be too strained by 4 major mobs all at once. But to be honest, we don't have time for all that.
And if for some reason the devs aren't able to add all 3 mobs to the game at the same time, really Mojang instead could follow into their own footsteps. Because these mob votes aren't the only thing they've involved the community in, and not the only thing they've let the community vote for. They've also held votes when it comes to different biomes in the game. And not for which biome will or won't be added to the game, but which biome will get their update first. Sometimes these updates include new mobs that are added to the game, or just new features or fixes. So really, if we believe Mojang, with these mob votes, they're prepared to add any 3 of the mobs to the game, or sometimes already have them fully ready to be added to the game. If there is an issue with being able to add them at the same time, or not wanting to make updates too big, let the community vote on which mob will be added first, or which mob will be updated first. This isn't a thing Mojang has never done, but choosing in an unfair vote for which one will be added to the game where the others will probably never see the light of day again is not the way to go. And if they really want to let go of some concepts because it just happens in developing a game, don't tell the community what they're missing out on. That's just a bad idea. People are always going to be mad if you show them what they're missing. But if instead you just show them, hey, this is what we can add to the game, which one do you want first? There's obviously going to be a much better reception. And there's not going to be a ton of angry fans that are left disappointed. Even if you hold the vote in a relatively unfair way, where it's a 3-way vote and the majority doesn't really get what they want, if it's just about which comes first, it's not that big of a deal. They'll get what they want anyway, and it's okay. Then it could be a fun way to include the community in decision making for the game. But just stop showing people what they're missing out on. It won't do you any good, especially after this year. It will only make people mad, especially if it comes with the promise that it will never be in the game. So this is where the mob vote saga ends for now. We don't know yet if they'll listen to the fans and make this the last mob vote, but if they care as much about the community as they say they do, they should show us that they're willing to listen.